I just want to welcome Mubasher Lucman onto the stage, a Pakistani journalist, well-renowned, a television host, anchor, and has also been the CEO of a major Pakistani broadcasting network. He was covering a lot of the talks that were happening between the United States of America and Iran, and therefore we thought this was an apt opportunity to get him in to speak about that and also speak about, as you guys know, our favorite topic, which is UAE, also commonly known as East Israel. Thank you so much for taking your time out to join us. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you very much for a resounding welcome.
Appreciate you. I want to get right into it. There was talks in between the United States of America and Iran. I know that you were covering those talks. What's your impression of the way the talks, what happened within those talks?
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me. And I've heard a lot about your broadcast and especially on the space. And I really look forward to my time over here. You see, when people who cover the talks or who talk about it, they forget about one fundamental thing. Iran and the US have been at loggerheads for 45 years now, and they've had no diplomatic, touchdown. They've had no sporting events. They've had no cultural events, no film events, nothing. I mean, there's nothing jointly done by US or Iran. The only thing that they have in common are their differences. That's the only thing that they have in common, and they've had it in common for 45 years now. Now, every child who's born in Iran, he or she looks up at the US and thinks it's a Satan. And every child who is born in America and grows up over there looks at Iran and says that is evil. So, this is the kind of animosity that has existed between the two. And when Pakistan made an effort to bring them closer to each other and on the same table, it was a Herculean effort. And if I may add, that post Second World War, this was probably the biggest diplomatic maneuver ever by any country because Pakistan stepped into at a time when two countries or three countries were going ballistic. They were really intense at that time, and there were talks and speculation about nuclear options being used by Israel on Iran. So it is at that time. So the fact that we got them together on the same table in itself is a huge accomplishment. Now, having said that, Iran and US have two different constituencies. Donald Trump is an American. He's looking at the Americans and he's telling them that he's won the war. Iranians, they are Iranians. They are looking at the Iranian public and they are telling them that they've won the war. Fine. Now, none of them wanted to come to a negotiating table and give the impression that they've lost the war on the diplomatic front, on a negotiating table. And for Iran, this was very tough and very difficult because you see, um, when the United States um, had, yeah, it was in the Second World War. Japan became the recipient of two atomic bombs, one at Hiroshima and the other at Nagasaki. At that time, the US wanted to cripple Japan. So what they did was they went and bombed two small towns, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that not many knew about. And that was a message to the emperor, the prime minister, and everyone that this is the destruction that we can cause. Now sit with us on a table and let's negotiate. And so they negotiated. But on the contrary, over here in Iran, they took out the top leadership on the day one. And then they took out the second tier of the leadership and the third tier of the leadership in the subsequent days, including the Ayatollah, who's a spiritual and a religious father figure. So now, who deals with the Americans at the when the tempers are so high, and everybody is seething for revenge, and giving them a taste of their own medicine. It's very difficult for somebody to come up over there and in Iran and tell them that look, we are going to go for a peace talk. with Israel and with the US, or with both of them, or with one of them. So we must all appreciate the constraints that were there for all of them. And after the first round of talks, the Iranians felt left out. They felt left down. They felt seriously let down, because this happened the second time around. I think, yeah, the first time it was in Oman when the talks had broken, and while the talks were on, the attacks came. And the second time, J.D. Vance and his group of people, they just left the talks in the middle and said, no deal, and they went home. And the Iranians kept on sitting over there and said, look, be our witness that we never left the table. So then the Iranians decided as a principle that we are not going to talk to the Americans directly. After which, it is left to the Pakistanis to, present the Iranian case, and left to the Pakistanis to present the American case. So that has made our um, diplomatic roles even more intense and difficult than what it was at the outset. So this is where we stand right now. And I personally feel that there will be no war anymore. I personally feel the war has ended for the good part. But I also feel that, ceasefire will continue as it is. And it seems that the US president may be suffering from war fatigue by now, and he may leave the war on his own, leaving the other Middle Eastern countries and the European countries to, sort out the Strait of Hormuz option, or whatever that is. So I think for the moment, it's going to be status quo.
Yeah, I think the Iranian leadership is quite robust. So even though they managed to take out some people on the first day, Abbas Araghchi was always there. Ghalibaf, who's intrinsically linked in the IRGC, was always there. But I guess the question to you is, do you think Trump could do that? Do you think he could leave the Gulf states on their own? Because he has a huge amount of personal wealth within those countries. For example, Saudi Arabia given his son-in-law Jared Kushner billions. We know he himself has so much money within those countries that even though he doesn't care about them, even though he's considers those countries beneath him, do you think he would do that because of his own personal engagement with those countries?
No, but when I meant leaving the war zone, I don't mean leaving the region and, with all the interest over here. At the same time, I don't know Donald Trump. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. I can only speculate like any other analyst out on the road. And so far, Mr. Trump has been fairly consistent about one thing, about going back on whatever he said a few hours earlier. So, I mean, all I can say is that, let's wait and see. I mean, uh, I won't be surprised if we get up in the morning and suddenly the American ships have left the Strait of Hormuz and said, "Oh, we got the orders to be elsewhere, and we are busy now. Sorry." And at the same time, they could bring in more troops over there and say, "Now, we want to pressurize the Iranians." But I don't think there'll be a war. I'm very clear about that. I don't think there'll be a war anymore. Though two countries are gunning for war. They really want a heavy war right now. One is Israel, and the other is mini Israel, if you allow me to say so, which is the UAE. In fact, so much so that I have news to break on your channel, and it may be a surprise for everyone. Mossad's headquarters were destroyed in Tel Aviv. So UAE has given them temporary space, and Mossad's new temporary headquarters are in the UAE right now, and particularly in Dubai. So that should tell you about the connectivity that those two have. Under the circumstances, to do that, I mean, tells you everything.
No doubt. We call it East Israel, but mini Israel is another good term for sure. Now, okay, let's talk about the UAE. The UAE has been complicit in this war. They allowed the United States of America to use its airspace. It allowed the United States of America to use its military bases. It allowed attacks on Karg Island directly from the UAE. One attack from Dubai, one from Ras Al Khaimah. We know that the UAE treats their underclass horribly and horrifically does not give them rights. We know they fund the genocide in Sudan, Somalia, Yemen. This not just fund it, they're part of it. And then in addition to that, they finance extremism in Europe and then also finance the Islamophobia industry in Europe as well. Give us your thoughts on what I just said now and anything you want to add in terms of the UAE.
You see, the problem is that Pakistan is the biggest recipient of the UAE atrocities. And let me give you a lesson in history. When Hong Kong was being transferred to China, it was a British colony at the time, and when it was being transferred to China, every millionaire and billionaire over there was running away because nobody wanted to be under the Chinese control. And for most of them, Karachi was the sensible port. It was it had access to hot waters, and it was a very cosmopolitan city. It was a very cultural city, rich and thriving, and had the right ingredients of all the infrastructure of the second world. And they wanted to come to Karachi for that. And at that time, the UAE started funding MQM very blatantly, and suddenly Karachi became the Karachi that we know now. Killings, kidnapping for ransom, torture cells, and everything bad that you can associate with a shiny town was happening in Karachi, and Karachi was getting known for that. Obviously, that scared of the billionaires. Obviously, that scares of the rich people. And if you see post 1985, that is when all that investment started going to Dubai. At that time, they didn't have anything except one terminal of Jebel Ali Free Port, and Karachi was the port that they wanted to use. And suddenly, with that induction, Jebel Ali Free Port came in, and then free zone and everything. I mean, Dubai started getting made. After that, they were investing in, with the BLA people in Balochistan, with Taliban, with TTP. Um, so much so that they have been heavily investing in the Russia-Ukraine war, trying to inflame the war. When I say inflame the war, the business plan is very simple, Suleiman, and you must understand that. There are two countries that are fighting each other, and I fuel that fight, and I sort of give them an incentive to cut each other's throats, and then I target those 500 billionaires of 300 billionaires over there in each of those countries and say, look, you're going to die over here with your money. My country is the only country that is safe for you. It has no income tax. It has all the security, and nothing to do with anyone. We have 200 nationalities. We have all religions practiced over here. We have a synagogue, we have mosques, we have churches. Now we have a mandir. You know, come to Dubai, and Yalla Habibi, come to Dubai. So they all would come to Dubai, and this is how they would fuel civil wars, atrocities in different countries, and attract the millionaires over there to come to Dubai. Now they're getting a taste of their own medicine. There is problem. There's fireworks in Dubai, and many other countries are telling those millionaires, Habibi, get out of Dubai. You don't belong there.
Definitely.
So Dubai is getting a taste of its own medicine. I'm sorry.
No
No,
doubt.
no substitute on my part.
No doubt. Completely agree with you. There's a lot of when one goes to Dubai, they see a lot of Pakistani and Indian workers there. What's your kind of thoughts on the treatment of those workers? The fact that they are underpaid, long hours. Many of them apparently have their passports taken off them. What's kind of your thoughts on the way they're treated?
Look, for Pakistanis, it has been the epitome of human right violations, basically. I mean, you talk about a human right violation, and that exists in Dubai. And let me tell you something very categorically. It is because of the Pakistan labor that Dubai exists. With 60-degree centigrade in the desert heat, and that, the desert wind, the hot wind, nobody could construct those roads and those palaces and those high-rise buildings over
Yeah.
there. It was the brave KPK Pathans who went over there, and our labor class that went over there. And from Punjab, we had people go in over there and plant trees and make gardens and you know everything green over there. So it is Pakistanis who've built Dubai with practically their blood, not just sweat, but blood and sweat. And they've been a thankless bunch. They've always looked at Pakistanis with disdain, and because they always thought that they were worker class. And the human right violations over there are not even funny, even today. I got to know of many people today who've been deported from Dubai. Um, they were given a 12-hour notice and they've been, put on flights. Some of them have reached, some of them are missing. We don't know what happened to them. And all their personal belongings, their vehicles, their cars, their apartments, everything that belonged to them is taken over by the authorities, and nobody's to talk about it. And this atrocity is multiplied on an hourly basis.
So you had an opportunity with the with the Iranian and the American delegation. You were able to converse with them. What was your kind of thoughts on their psychology in terms of the negotiation? You mentioned earlier that the United States of America previously, when it's been in negotiations, has consistently, while in the midst of negotiations, bombed Iran. We saw that during the 12-day war. We saw that again in this war. And obviously the concern is it may happen again while these negotiations are going on in Pakistan. What was the psychology? Because we've heard reports that the American delegation maybe were a bit more open and then they got phone calls during the negotiations. This is a con to some of the Iranian negotiators who I've spoken to, such as Professor Marandi and various others. But they got phone calls during the day and they kind of just cut or shut down the negotiations. What was your own kind of perspective being a Pakistani journalist?
Let me correct it. I never met any of the negotiators, neither American nor Iranians. My claim is that I've met American diplomats,
Okay.
senior diplomats over there, and senior Iranian diplomats. And I spoke to some of the journalists who were part of the delegation from Iran side, but they were not negotiators.
Yeah.
Okay, they were there for a different reason. So no, I mean the first part is totally not right. I mean I never met anybody from the negotiating table. But what I can tell you is that all these phone calls and everything they are I mean duly noted down. They are recorded, and in fact so much so that I was with some American journalists yesterday. One of them has become a very famous one, for her comments on Pakistan and the food and the hospitality. And then she's the one who called President Trump from there, asking him his opinion, which he did. She works for the New York Post. Then I met a few others, and one of them said to me that it was probably Netanyahu who called at the last minute and who made sure that the negotiations were cut short over there. Otherwise, according to that journalist, the deal was almost finalized, everything was agreed upon. But then we'll only know when we know. This is the unofficial version. And the other bit is that I can tell you, I've seen certain earnestness and and positive attitude on both sides,
Right.
American as well as the Iranians. They really want to patch up. I mean, I can tell you categorically that nobody wants a war and nobody wants more destruction and catastrophe. So, I mean, it's a positive start. It's a very positive start. And whatever has been achieved by Pakistan Foreign Office, the Foreign Services, is exemplary. And we've had, I mean, serious issues from India, from all the commentators over there, from UAE, of course, from Israel. Sorry, I shouldn't say UAE. I should just say Israel and mini Israel. And, that's silly if we sort of rate it as another country, as a sovereign country. So, because what was, I spoke to a very senior Iranian, coming back to your previous comment that you just made, Suleiman. And I said, why did you hit the UAE? He said, because every missile that we were hitting at Israel, they were intercepting it. And every missile that Israel was hitting at us, it was being, supplied with coordinates from UAE. So, I mean, we had to hit them.
No doubt, no doubt. And the coordinates, the airspace, the military bases, even the Karg Island was directly uh,
Yeah.
from East Israel, which is commonly known as UAE. But in terms of coming back to it, you spoke to some senior diplomats. You believe the war is over, and you think there's a high likelihood that Trump walks away. But Trump walking away from the region means Israel loses really badly. It means the Gulf states lose really badly, and Iran benefits significantly, although without the sanctions relief, there is a bit of a crutch. You think that's the more likely outcome, and Trump will just leave? Because like the reports are very clear now that the reason he went to this war was because of Israel, and you think that he would actually leave them in the lurch in this scenario?
I personally don't think it was just Israel. I think it was his economic fight over China as well. The reason he went to Venezuela was because Venezuela was supplying oil to China and charging in yuan. And then Iran is the biggest supplier for China, far as oil is concerned. So controlling or disrupting oil supplies from two or three countries towards China means that you're halting the biggest production house in the world. And as a consequence, the prices and everything would sort of go up over there, and the Americans or the Europeans could compete with them. So I think this war is not just about Israel, but it is much more than that. By having said that, there is one point I want to make about Israel. And ironically, every person I've seen on television, every scholar, has missed out this very fundamental element about Israel. Israel came into existence in 1948, right? And if you look at the map of Israel in 1948, what it was, and today what it is, United Nations has failed to demarcate Israel as a country. There's no functioning boundary
Yeah.
of Israel. It sort of makes and remakes its own boundaries. It suddenly goes into Lebanon, takes 30 kilometers and says, this is our boundary. It goes into Gaza and says, this is our boundary. It goes into East Side and it says, this is our new boundary. So neither the Arab countries, the GCC, the OIC, nor the United Nations have been able to clearly demarcate as to what is Israel and where will it end. I mean, you just can't have a country go on their dream and killing on other people. And it's just absurd. And I think some of the fundamental things that have come out in this conflict is that United Nations is dead. It doesn't function anymore. That's why you have the Gaza Accord. I mean, you have a different set of countries and different kind of accord coming over there. OIC is non-existent. GCC obviously is not there anymore, not as we used to think it was 2 years back, but not anymore. And I think there'll be a new map of the Middle East very soon. And I can predict on your show today that three countries now in the Middle East will have a regime change very soon. One is Bahrain, the other is UAE, and third is Israel. And you'll see a regime change in all three of them. And remember, 1 year back, exactly on your Twitter space, I had predicted about the India-Pakistan war, and some were skeptical at the time. And then I had predicted what Pakistan will do to India. Many were skeptical. And today, whatever I say, take it with a pinch of salt, but see it unfolding.
Yeah, great point. You made some marvelous predictions during that Twitter space, and they did indeed come to fruition. Just in terms of Pakistan's role in these negotiations, obviously Pakistan's not had the best press before this. They've always probably not made the best decisions, is probably the best way to say it. But the victory against India and then being at the forefront of these negotiations has kind of given Pakistan a more positive perspective from a worldwide view. What's your thoughts on that?
See, before Bunyan al-Marsus, or as Indians call it, Sindoor, before Operation Sindoor, for America, I can tell you about America, it used to be FPAC. Afghanistan and Pakistan, and then India was separate. That was a regional power. And, it had to be, separated from us. And it was FPAC. Afghanistan was before Pakistan in terms of importance, in terms of requirement, whatever. And suddenly after this Operation Bunyan al-Marsus, it is Afghanistan is out, India, it is in Pak-Indo relations of Pakistan, India. And India has taken a secondary role. And not only the military operations, followed by a very hectic diplomatic exercise on part of both India as well as Pakistan. Pakistan beat them collectively, and so convincingly that not a single country in the world joined the Indian bandwagon. And then there was this report in the Congress, the U.S. Congress, which tells you everything about how Pakistan beat up and bashed up India over there. And then we had our best ambassador of all time, Mr. Donald J. Trump, who kept on reminding Modi about the number of aircrafts he had lost. He probably reminded him more than I did. So I remind the Indians as many times as Mr. Trump did. So, I mean, it really elevated the stature of Pakistan, the armed forces, the diplomacy, and the fact that we took on an enemy who's 11 times bigger than us and who was being touted as somebody who will take over China, who will take on China and teach China a lesson and stop China in the tracks, and suddenly realize that Pakistan is the one that took its pants down and very easily, very conveniently. And after that, India's dream was all over. I mean, it ended over there. And from then on, Pakistan has never looked back. Pakistan has tried to be in the right areas. Look at this performance. For a moment, look at this conflict. Iran is attacked, Pakistan condemns the attack. We support Iran. Iran attacks the Gulf countries, Pakistan condemns that attack and supports the Gulf countries. Iran attacks Saudi Arabia, Pakistan has a defense accord with Saudi Arabia. And while we station our people over there, we are hectically telling the Iranians to stay away from Saudi Arabia, at least to begin with, and to, come to their senses. And so Pakistan has been playing these opposite roles. China, America, you know, and then Iran, Saudi, UAE, all of them put together, Qatar, Bahrain, and we were right in the middle over there. Where Oman failed, where Turkey couldn't score, we did. So
So
that speaks volume.
yeah. I mean, there was one country that went to India, and that was Israel. Obviously, they call themselves the motherland and the fatherland, and it wasn't a great relationship. But just a question.
I think India will be very soon it will be a widow. Let me put it this way.
Yeah. So just a question to you. Something you mentioned, and I was going to ask you this question, was about the defense pact. Pakistan has a defense pact with Saudi Arabia where they give their military equipment and their military personnel. There are negotiations about doing the same with Qatar. Isn't this a problem? You basically have Pakistan, a sovereign nation, is almost using their military, which is their biggest strength, as a basically mercenaries to hire, because if Saudi Arabia gets into a war, whether it's with Iran, whether it's with Yemen, whoever it is, they do tend to get to war or go into war with a number of countries. Pakistan, according to that defense pact may be initiated, and Pakistan may have to join a war where they're meant to be neutral in, and they do have relations with Iran or these various countries. Do you not see that as a problem?
No, I think you are confusing the pact that we have. We've had a pact with Saudi Arabia for I don't know how long. My own brothers have served in Saudi Arabia while they were in the Pakistan army, and I'm talking about way back in the 80s like 83, 82, 83. And there's a whole division of Pakistan Army that used to be there in Tabuk. And we trained the Saudi forces over there and all that. You see, there are different levels and of a defense pact between countries. And honestly, I don't know what is the level of Saudi-Pak defense pact. I mean, hope, I just hope that it is of the highest level. I mean, why not? I mean, Pakistan, everyone in Pakistan loves Saudi Arabia and the fact that it can defend the holy shrines. Why not? And the other thing is that when we defend Qatar, there is no conflict of interest. Saudi and Qatar don't want to or intend to attack each other. It is just telling the world that their Western allies have not been able to defend them despite being recipient of $1.5 trillion. You give $100 billion to Pakistan annually, I can assure you Pakistan will keep entire Middle East safe and peaceful, and nobody will attack nobody. And Iran, I mean, let's be realistic for a minute. We may or may not like Iran for whatever reason, but they were pushed. They never attacked anyone. I mean, they are the ones who were attacked
Yeah.
twice in 10 months. And then you go and attack a girls' college over there where the most, I think it was 11 years was the highest age over there. Then you go and attack the Gandhi hospital. And then you attack the girls' college again, the second time around. So please, I mean, it wasn't Iran. Iran never attacked a civilian compound.
I agree.
I mean, UAE is just, at a visual distance. They could have hit Burj Khalifa. I mean, you have to be blind to miss Burj Khalifa, for God's sake, with either a drone or a missile, okay, or Burj Al Arab or whatever. They never did. So give them this much of credit that this war was thrust on them. It wasn't for theirs, asking for, they weren't asking for it.
I totally agree with you. I think Iran's playing is in defense, fighting against these huge powers who initiated the war without a doubt, and even now they're in defense. But coming back to the defense pact, my understanding of the defense pact, having read it in detail, is initially it was as per what you said. You mentioned your brother served, but during the Imran Khan administration, it was escalated to the point where now Pakistani military personnel were gonna, if Saudi Arabia does decide to do so, would have to help support and facilitate Saudi Arabia in any war. And the biggest concern all of us have is this: if the United States of America, hypothetically, I know you don't believe this is going to happen, but hypothetically, if the United States of America was to attack Iran's power plants, infrastructure, Iran will do the exact same, and oil refineries, Iran will do the same thing to Saudi Arabia. And then Saudi Arabia, who's been helping facilitate this war as well, will then have to initiate the defense pact. And so that leaves Pakistan in a tough spot. Sorry, go ahead.
Three things. So you're confusing three different things, and you've sort of intermingled them. Let me ease out the clutter over here. Okay, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have a defense pact.
Yeah.
What is the defense pact? What is the extent of the defense pact? I don't know. I mean, I'm not privy to that. Okay, I mean, period. All I know is that it is probably defense of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's my assumption. It is not attack on part of Saudi Arabia. Like if Saudi Arabia wants to attack X country, be it whatever country, Pakistan may not be a part of that attack. Okay, but if Saudi Arabia is attacked, Pakistan is there to defend it. There are two different kinds of defense pacts. Okay? And it can extend to arms and ammunition and training and logistic support and supply chain and everything. And there's a lot more to defense than just attacking a country. I mean, there's a lot more to that.
Sure.
Now, hypothetical, we can't be hypothetical in this day and age. We are already going through a time when we believe that the geography of the world will change and will alter. We believe that geography of the Middle East will change greatly. I personally feel that Iraq will not be there in the current form. It will be split into multiple countries. Syria will not be in the same geopolitical situation as it is today. It will be very difficult for Yemen to continue as one country, as things are unfolding. So as we speak, there's too much happening behind the scenes. And let's not jump to hypothetical conclusions. The fact of the matter is, if anybody in the world attacks Saudi Arabia, the sovereignty of Saudi Arabia, Pakistan is committed to it. Pakistan will defend Saudi Arabia. And I'm not sure. I don't even know if we have an agreement of attacking a country on behalf of Saudi Arabia or not. So I can't comment on that. I did meet a Russian diplomat as well. I met many diplomats this time around in Islamabad, and one of them was a very seasoned Russian diplomat and stationed in Islamabad. And I asked him, I said, when Pakistan and India went to war, did you support India? He said, no. He said, we only sold weapons to them. And I said, why didn't you support them? He said, we don't have a pact of defending each other or attacking on each other's behalf. Why should we? I mean, otherwise we would have asked them to come and attack Ukraine. You know, why can't, if we have a pact like that, they should have reciprocated that over here. So no, there are multiple layers to a defense pact. Let's not mix them up. And they are not complex situations, do not have simple solutions.
No problem. We'll leave that there. We'll let the great answer and great conversation on that. Now, moving on to one last question before we wrap up, because I know your time is limited. In terms of now, we have heard that the negotiations are over. But that being said, the Iranian Foreign Minister Dr. Abbas Araghchi went back to Pakistan for further discussions. I believe that's one element of it. The second element is there was a report about an hour ago that the Russian IRGC and Pakistan military, I believe, also met in a Central Asian country. Was that in terms of, from your understanding, in terms of the negotiation or possible future collaboration, or what's your understanding of that meeting?
One of the reasons why I believe these talks have succeeded and come so far is because the press has been kept out. And that's a very important reason, because everybody has a different angle and a different, we've seen too many stories of the CNN and Reuters bounce. I mean, imagine Reuters having bounce stories 3 in 2 days. Al Jazeera, I must tell you that I've never come across so much of garbage that I came from Al Jazeera in the last few days. I've seen, the channel over there. I've lost all respect for them. So, I mean, because they've had such a blackout for the media, I think the negotiations have been going on, because I've told you at the outset the constraints of all the parties who are on the table. What are the constraints over there, and not everybody can appreciate the pressures they must be going through. So I personally feel that this negotiation could go well beyond a month or 6 weeks, maybe even more, maybe even longer. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen this week. It's going to take much longer, because remember, Suleiman, when a child is born, it doesn't mean the mischief happened the night before. It takes 9 months. So, I mean, everything. This problem did not just occur on February 28th. This has been going on for donkeys of years. So it will not be solved in 72 hours or 2 sessions or 3 sessions. It will take much more. Even if today J.D. Vance and let's say Mr. Araghchi, they were to meet today and they were to sign everything, I can assure you they'll still have to go back to their technical teams, who'll sort out things and things and things, and it'll take them a couple of months to come up with exact details. There are 10 points on one side, 15 points on one side. These points are not acceptable to this side. These points are not acceptable to this side. And to, sort of ease out each one of them and address them in the post-conference draft, that's going to be a nightmare for these supporting staff. So it's not going to be over in 2 days. It's going to take many weeks. Stay put. I mean, there'll be plenty of spaces you'll have to do.
Yeah, we do them on a daily basis, but isn't the time constrained? Because I speak to a lot of financial experts I have on the show, and they're saying we're already in a recession. We could be in a depression. The strait remains closed for another month, as per what you're saying. This will be total global collapse.
The global economy has already collapsed. Let me give you a fact of life that total world GDP is $100 trillion and total deficit is $300 trillion. So this economy is not going anywhere. It wasn't going anywhere, and it wasn't doing well. Inflation and recession were, overtaking the world as it is. So, like I said, everybody is going after the new resources, additional resources, and somebody wants rare earth minerals, somebody wants oil, somebody wants gas, somebody wants gold. People are, fighting for everything that they can get hold of because the world is changing its course. Institutions that were formed at the culmination of the Second World War have lost their significance and they're going out in oblivion. Countries, kingdoms, sheikdoms, now you may call them, like UAE and Bahrain and all these family oriented kingdoms, they are being revisited. The world is just sitting up and thinking, do we really need them? I mean, these jokers, are fond of Rolls Royces and, camel coated palaces and chandeliers, or we need people who can look after humanity, and who have some passion, who have some empathy for everyone around. This is a planet of now 8 billion people, and not everyone is being fed. So the world is reorganizing its priorities and revisiting its objectives. Forget about this recession. I mean, this recession could have been far worse if Pakistan had not stepped in and had there been a nuclear hit. I mean, talk about a recession at that time. So tell them not to rue what they don't have, but be grateful for what they are missing.
Appreciate you coming on as always, Mubasher. What a great journalist. Really appreciate your insight and thoughts onto these things. I know people can find you on your YouTube channel, which is Mubasher Lucman Official, as well as your X account, which is Mubasher Lucman. So I do implore everybody to follow you, but appreciate you taking your time out to join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And pleasure being with you. Thank you.
It was the pleasure was all ours. Thank you so much. That was Mubasher Lucman, the journalist from Pakistan who did cover the negotiations in Islamabad. Do me a favor, guys. Like this video, share this video, comment in the main section. What did you think he had to say? I mean, I disagreed with a lot of things he had to say. I did give some pushback, but what's your thoughts? Do you agree with him about the UAE? You better agree with him on the UAE. But do you agree with him in terms of this defense pact that Pakistan has with Saudi Arabia? Do you agree with him in terms of Pakistan's role in the negotiations? Let me know your thoughts in the main comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. Just to let you know, we've got an interview next with Pepe Escobar on the YouTube. That's going to be in a different stream. So make sure you come directly to that stream. It's scheduled for 2 p.m. So make sure you come across to that screen. We've got a number of people on here. Do check that out. So it is the Larry Johnson interview.